All right. Hello, everybody. Hope you all are doing well. This is the NBA Tournament Strategy Show, where on this show, we look back at last night, see what went well, what might not have gone as well. And then we look at today's slate. We go game by game, just talk through guys that we're high on, guys who might be a little bit lower on. This is really more of the brainstorming show, whereas on the pre-lock show, which is at 5:30 p.m. Eastern for VIP members only, link is in the description. Feel free to use the promo code BOB for a 10% discount. On that show, we would talk through the implementation of the slate and what we're actually doing. We talk through leverage plays, guys that I'm going to be double the field on. That's what leverage play is for me. We talk about core plays, guys that I'm going to be a little bit under on, and go from there. Really just how I'm actually using the domination station on that slate. So, all right. This is a pretty last night was a little wild, but it ended up being pretty good for me. I think my top score was like 370. So that was pretty good in most contests. Uh, I think my biggest flaw from last night. Oh, this was the $100,000 winning lineup. Should mention that. Last night, I wish I had a little bit more Embiid. I had some. I was around 19% or 15%, somewhere around there. So I had some, but I wish I had more. Markkinen, it's funny. On the pre-lock show, we were talking about it. The domination station loved Lauri Markkinen, and I was like, I don't know why. But then we talked it through. The matchup was pretty soft. And so I was able to get my head around it. And so I didn't tinker. And so that was a domination station play that the DS was all over. So good job, domination station. Lou Dort, this was a huge contest last night to win $150,000. There were some really weird plays in there, like Lou Dort. I was not going to play Lou Dort really unless like SGA is out or something like that. So I'm fine missing that one. Malik Beasley was the other really weird random guy who went off. Something to keep track of to see if that's a consistent trend, but I doubt it. I'm not mad about missing that. Nasir Little was a core play or close to it. I don't recall. Cam Reddish was a core play or close to it. And then Ryan Archidankono. I didn't watch that game last night, so I don't know how to pronounce his name. But we had a min on him. I had a 5% exposure minimum on him to make sure I had some exposure. Towards some of my later runs, I did get a little bit more exposure, so I was closer to field weight, but that wasn't something I had to force really. SGA, we had an exposure minimum on, so we were close to field weight exposure on him. So all in all, solid night. Wish I had more Embiid, but still a good night. So I'll take it. Thomas Dye, good to see you, man. Dave, congrats to you. I know you had a really nice contest win yesterday too. So awesome. And appreciate the reminder. Don't forget to hit the like button. Really appreciate that. And share and subscribe. Appreciate you guys. All right, that was a lot. Now we can calm down a little bit, look at today's slate, see what craziness we have in store. But as of right now, it seems like it's not that insane, honestly. Just a solid 8-game slate. Good to see you, Thomas. Josh said Archie Diacono. Okay. Appreciate that. I'll try to keep that in mind, but no promises. All right. For the Knicks, we have Mitchell Robinson listed as questionable, and Evan Fournier is out. Mitch Rob being potentially out is important. Right now, he's questionable, so I'm not going to look too much into it. But when he's out, the defense of the Knicks goes down a ton. Just as a whole, they are a worse defense. So something that I definitely want to keep an eye on, because if Robinson's out, I have more interest in the Washington Wizards. If he ends up playing, I like the spot for him. The Wizards aren't the best rebounding team out there, so a little bit of an easier chance for him to get to a double-double, but that's more like TBD. We'll see what happens there. For the Wizards, Bradley Beal's listed as questionable. Will Barton is out. Of course, if Bradley Beal is out, we know Kispert usually sees the starting lineup, so he's slightly more interesting. Porzingis, Kuzma, and Nunn are the top 3 guys in usage when Beal, Rory, and Will Barton aren't playing, which would be the case if Bradley Beal ends up being out. So those are 3 guys who are, again, more interesting than they are before. For me, right now, Kristaps Porzingis isn't very interesting. If Bradley Beal and Mitchell Robinson end up being out, I'm going to be all over Porzingis tonight. Uh, yeah, I'm gonna love having some exposure to him, and I'll be double the field no matter how popular he is. There's a line there, but we'll make sure we're on the same page for the pre-lock show. RJ Barrett is projecting well, so the matchup's fine. I'm not really against it. He has decent ownership that's not too crazy for an 8-gamer. He's just a fine play. I'm not super passionate about it as of right now. If Mitchell Robinson ends up being out, Julius Randle gets a boost for me. He would be someone that I would consider as a potential leverage play as well, but it would really just depend on where his ownership falls. Josh said I like Kuzma over Zingas tonight. Yeah, interesting. I don't disagree, honestly. I like Porzingis more so if Robinson is out because it's a little bit of a softer matchup for him. But again, like their defense as a whole goes down. So I think Kuzma would be in a fantastic spot too. So I would probably plan on being over on both of them, to be honest. But I like it. I like the play. All right, moving on. A little bit more of a boring game, in my opinion. We have the Cleveland Cavaliers against the Atlanta Hawks. The Cavaliers are healthy right now, which is something we haven't been able to say in a long time. Looks like Ricky Rubio is going to play. So, we'll see how this falls out. I don't love targeting the Cavaliers when everyone's healthy. I took a shot on Garland last night as a leverage play. Leverage plays did not really come through outside of Jokic yesterday, but because the core plays were so strong, it really was able to help me stay afloat, which is nice when that happens. That's the good part about MMEing. You don't have to get everything right, just the majority. So yeah, Garland, softer matchup, I agree. Cheaper too, which is nice. As of right now, not my favorite play on the slate, but viable. He projects well too. So unless we get any crazy news, I'm sure I'll have some decent exposure. A guy I hate playing, but moving on to the Atlanta Hawks. Trae Young was not on the injury report, so it looks like he's healthy. He missed practice yesterday because he was being a jerk, probably like he usually is. So there's that. But it looks like he'll play. The matchup against the Cavs isn't my favorite. I also just don't like playing Trae Young when DeJounte Murray's playing as well. So I can't really find a great reason to play them. So probably not going to be doing that. Unless the domination station wants it, and then we'll handle that when we get there. But hopefully that's not something I have to worry about today. John Collins is out, though. So that does make some of these other plays slightly more interesting. But it's weird because the Hawks have had a few changes to their team. And so this season we've seen they have a lot of streaky shooters with guys like Bogdan Bogdanovic. Like he can break a slate whenever he gets hot. If Trae Young and DeJounte Murray are allowing him to do that and not dominating the ball. They've added another streaky performer in Sadiq Bey. He's one of those boom or bust plays. Not my favorite play at all. And so I think Sadiq Bey might be in play for me. Thomas, don't whoa me. Trae Young deserves all the slander in the world for how much of a jerk he's been. He's a coach killer. He ruins careers and he's awful. You know that, Thomas. I know you do deep down. Trae Young is the problem. I don't think that's a hot take. I don't think it is. But when John Collins is out, I worry the Hawks might struggle like against a really good Cavs team and a really good big front court. But again, with Collins is out, Bogdanovic and Hunter see the highest increase in usage. The issue is we don't really know how much more of a boost Sadiq Bey might see here. He should see a little bit more run with Collins out. And so that does make him a little bit more interesting than he would normally be. The problem is we have some other value on this slate and more solidified situations. So I trust those spots a little bit more, but Sadiq Bey is on my radar as a potential sneaky play, but I think it's probably me getting a little bit too cute, to be honest with you guys. All in all, not my favorite spot. Next up, we have the Miami Heat against the Bucks. The Heat, again, are healthy for the most part. Kyle Lowry's still out. Jovic is still out. Yurspin is still out, but for the most part, they're healthy. And if anything, the situation's gotten even worse for the Heat because now Kevin Love has joined this team. He probably won't play a ton. He probably won't matter as long as like Bam Adebayo is healthy. But I never really liked playing the Miami Heat. The matchup's not my favorite. Giannis is doubtful for the Bucks, so that should make the matchup at least a little bit more soft than it appears to be on paper, but still not my favorite spot. The spread is still pretty close, and so that's giving me a little bit of interest in Jimmy Butler. Let's see what the sim model thinks about him. Not the biggest fan. Not the biggest fan. But he's on my radar. If this game stays close, he's interesting. He'll be much more interesting if Tyler Hero wasn't playing, but beggars can't be choosers. The low ownership is what's making me consider taking a shot. Kevin Love at 3K looks like he's getting some decent ownership. I understand the play, not my favorite. I'm okay being around field weight. Maybe I'll be willing to go as high as like 30%, but not my favorite spot. The Bucks are much more interesting, at least for me, on this slate. Giannis Antetokounmpo is doubtful, which would matter, which definitely has a huge impact on this team. So I don't want to like undermine that by any means. But it's interesting seeing that the only guy on this team really getting ownership right now is Chris Middleton. That can change and probably will change dramatically. Uh, Thomas said, "I can't believe what I'm hearing right now." I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. um, but I wouldn't be shocked if some of these guys see a little bit more ownership as we get closer to lock. Pat Connaughton's also listed as doubtful. It looks like Chris Middleton, Bobby Portis, and Jay Crowder all appear to be healthy. The issue is that some people are projecting that Portis, Middleton, and Crowder will see some sort of minute restriction. Again, that hasn't been confirmed, so we're not really sure, but it's something to keep an eye out on for sure. For me, yeah, the matchup against the Heat is a tough one, but especially with them pretty much being healthy at this point, Kyle Lowry hasn't been playing a ton. I just don't care about that situation too much. I'm still willing to take some shots here on Drew Holiday if he stays low owned. I'm sure I'll have some Chris Middleton exposure. Lopez is another guy that I have some interest in, but his price tag is getting a little bit too high for me. Let's see if the sim model likes him at all. Not really a fan. It does like the front court of the Cavs a little bit. They're viable, but they're just not popping for me right now. But for me, Jrue Holiday is the guy that I have the most interest in as of right now. He has the second highest usage rate when Giannis is out. The guy who has the first is Chris Middleton, but his minutes are still in flux. So my plan as of right now is to be around field weight on Chris Middleton. I don't trust him enough to have him be a core player or anything like that, but I do recognize the ceiling is there if he does see a slight increase in minutes. But the guy I trust a little bit more is Jrue Holiday, and if he's going to be low owned, I'm fine making him a leverage play and going double the field on him, even in a tough matchup. With Giannis gone, I'm willing to take the shots. All right, next up we have the Nets against the Bulls. The Bulls also appear to be pretty healthy. The only guy that's questionable is Goran Dragic. And for the Nets, the only guy who's questionable is Ben Simmons. I care a little bit more about Ben Simmons being out, to be honest. Well, if he ends up being out, just because it makes things a little bit more interesting for the Nets. I talk about it a lot. This is going to be a streaky team where I think there's going to be some spots where a lot of these random guys go off and it's going to be annoying on a slate to slate basis. I don't really expect to get this right all the time. I think very few people will. I do think there's a chance Mikal Bridges really could be the guy on this team. And so if he's going to be low owned, I'm willing to take a shot on him and kind of like Jrue Holiday, make him a leverage play and be around 10% exposure. Again, not set in stone. A lot of things change throughout the day, but he's definitely on my radar as a potential strong play. Outside of that, I don't have a ton of interest. Cam Johnson's always interesting to me, but I don't know if I can quite make that case yet for him, but I'm considering it for him too. Outside of that, we're going to let the domination station do its thing. It looks like Spencer Dinwiddie's picking up some ownership. Not my favorite spot, honestly, but if I'm around like 10-15% exposure to him, maybe even 20, I'll be fine with it. But I don't really want to go much higher than that unless I'm just missing something. Then for the Bulls, I'm pretty neutral on them. Honestly, there's not really anyone that's popping out for me that I feel like I have to play. Uh, so yeah, the Bulls just aren't my favorite team to play on this slate when they're all healthy. All right, next up, a much more fun game. We have the Hornets against the Timberwolves. For the Hornets, we have Rozier, Oubre listed as probable, Cody Martin's out. They're healthy. They're healthy. They're healthier than they've been in a while. The Hornets are probably one of the spots I'm not as excited about in this game. Again, nothing's just really standing out. I do want some exposure, so I'm fine having a little bit of ball and Rozier, but probably not a situation I'm going to try to force. Oubre being back really does kind of mess things up for Dennis Smith Jr. too. Just not my favorite spot tonight, guys, unfortunately. Mark Williams' price has increased closer to where it should be. I think we'll probably have some better center plays, but he's still viable. And then the Gordon Hayward train looks like it's died off a little bit. So as of right now, not jumping on that train either. Oh, the ownership is scary here. That's disappointing. But I still like him. So Sim Model likes Anthony Edwards a lot. I'm going to... Again, the ownership is a little brutal for me. Like, I can't have him be a leverage play unless he ends up being a core play. That's a little tough to stomach at this point, but I do want to be around field weight exposure. I'm fine being over on him. We've been playing bigs against the Hornets since day one, and I'm totally fine playing Rudy Gobert as well. Like I said, I like everyone from this team. I'm fine with all of the starters. Mike Conley, Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels is fine. Kyle Anderson is fine. The ownership on Kyle Anderson, I freaking hate. I have a bias against Kyle Anderson. I will always admit to that. He's not someone I plan on being extremely over the field on. I'll probably cap my exposure to him around like 40, 45, but would be totally fine going under on him as well. He's priced well, great matchup. There's not really anything I can say bad about him outside of my trust issues against him, to be honest. I like the other starters more. Yeah, that was pretty easy. Looks like even guys like Nas Reed and Torrin Prince are seeing some ownership. Not my favorite spots for Reed, to be honest. But if this game, yeah, the spread's not even wide. I was like, maybe in a blowout. Not my favorite spot for him, but I get he's cheap. Torrin Prince is slightly more doable for me. I need to dig a little bit deeper into what's going on with his minutes and how consistent those are. If they're there and he's one of the better value plays on this slate, I'm open to it. Next up, we have a gigantic spread. 10.5 points. Rockets against the Golden State Warriors. Let's see. Rockets have Jalen Green and Kevin Porter Jr. listed as out. The Warriors have Andrew Wiggins listed as out. Looks like he's dealing with some personal stuff. No idea what that includes. And then, of course, Curry is still out as well. The Jordan Poole play didn't work out very well yesterday, but I'm totally fine going right back to it without too much hesitation, especially if he stays in single-digit ownership range. At first, we had some concern on if Klay Thompson was actually going to play in back-to-backs. It appears that Coach Kerr said, hey, don't worry about it. He's going to start playing in back-to-backs, which I guess is very helpful if Wiggins is going to be out for a while. So, makes sense. But I tend to prefer Poole over Thompson. I just like his upside a bit more, but we've seen Klay be explosive as well. So that's the route you would rather go. I have no beef against that, but I'm choosing Poole. Looney actually performed well last night. I didn't really understand the ownership, but he did fine. He didn't make the nuts lineup, but I know he performed well for people. So glad that worked out for him. Even though he didn't start either. Kuminga started over him. So it was just a really weird spot. If Kuminga starts again here, I'm totally fine having plenty of exposure to him. I'm assuming that's why he has the high ownership projection. And so I would prefer to see the starting lineup before I make that choice. But it does seem like we're getting a little bit desperate for value on this slate, so I'm fine kind of taking some of those kind of risk if I need to. But nothing really set in stone here outside of Jordan Poole. For the Rockets, it does look like they have some interesting pieces with like Shungen at 7,500. We'll see what the sim model thinks about him. Shungen has some mild interest. It likes Terry Rozier a bit more. Loves Rudy, who we already talked about. I like him too. It always likes Bradley Beal. But yeah, for me, Shungen's probably the guy I feel the most safe with. With Green and Kevin Porter Jr. out, I understand why everyone else is popping. I'm fine eating it. I need to dig a little bit deeper into the Rockets, to be honest, to see who I feel the most comfortable with. But not really my favorite spot to go over, but I understand their ownership, so I plan on probably just matching the field on a lot of these guys. Ty Washington is popping as a value play, so I need to dig a little bit deeper into what's happening there as well. Next up, we have the Thunder against the Suns. For the Suns, we have Cam Payne listed as questionable. Kevin Durant's out. Landry Shamit's out. Nothing too crazy there. Looks like Kevin Durant's going to play like next Wednesday, I think I heard. So that'll be fun to see. But while he's not playing, I'm always willing, especially when the sim model likes him too, to take shots on Devin Booker. The ownership on Devin Booker isn't low. 14% isn't sneaky, but I'm fine going like 30% on him if that ownership stays consistent. So for me, it's probably Devin Booker here as my leverage play. The other pieces here I'm fine with because the matchup against the Thunder is pretty subpar, and it's when you can attack. So I'm fine having exposure to these guys, but not my favorite spots. Josh Okogie, Torrey Craig. I feel like they're going to have to put everything they have out there on the court over the next few games because they're not going to be playing as much once our guy KD starts playing. So fine playing all these guys. Not a big fan of Chris Paul, but I understand the upside he kind of can bring to the table sometimes. I'll be more interested in him if he was lower owned, but at 15%, not a spot I'm trying to go too over on. All right. So yeah, Devin Booker, main guy for me on that one. Next up, we have the Kings against the Clippers. And for the Kings, we have KZ Okpala listed as TBD. For the Clippers, we have Russell Westbrook expected to make his debut, which will be interesting to see. I don't think people are projecting him to start. I think everyone's expecting him to come off the bench. This Clippers team is kind of gross right now. Let's just look at it. Look at it in a bit more detail. Like, they have Terrence Mann, the projected starter. Russell Westbrook coming off the bench. I think everyone's expecting him to still see most of the minutes. You have Eric Gordon, who they brought onto this team as well, who should now see slightly less minutes with Russell Westbrook playing. This is a much better playoff team, but a much harder team to play from a DFS standpoint, and just one that I'm not the biggest fan of attacking with. Let's see. Simano does like Kawhi or Paul George. Okay, it likes Kawhi a little bit. At his low ownership, I'm interested. Paul George. Okay, it likes them both a good bit, which I'm fine with. Like, I don't want to take pieces on these guards because I have no idea what the rotation is going to look like and how the usage rate is going to end up splitting up because it feels kind of gross from a DFS standpoint. I think they probably all just perform fine. But I'm really hoping Kawhi or Paul George have the ceiling performance. Because of the low ownership, I'm going to lean towards making Kawhi a leverage play, probably around 10-15%. Paul George, probably just more so around field weight. I like the spot for him, but not a spot I want to really I don't want to force 30% exposure to him. If that happens naturally and the domination station likes him a lot, I'm totally fine with that, but I don't want to force it, if that makes sense. But I am more so willing to force Kawhi Leonard because he's lower owned. Okay, that was the last game on the slate. We had a few leverage plays in there. Again, always subject to change based on what happens during the slate. But on the pre-lock show, I'll have those locked down and loaded. We'll talk about core plays. We'll talk about guys that I'm lowering exposure to. So again, appreciate everyone Hope you all have a great rest of your day. Look forward to seeing everyone on the pre-lock show. Let's get it. See y'all later. Peace out.